The world of politics is something that we think doesn't share across lands, but across the pond, here from the US to the UK, we have an amazing similarity in our politics. And one of them is something that we call cancel culture. Cancel culture is something that in the US started not long ago, but it has taken over for so long. I'm Juan Collado Diaz, and this is Politico. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of Politico. I am your host, Juan Collado Diaz, and with me today I have Sean B.W. Parker. He's an artist, a writer, a musician, specializing in painting, poetry, cultural theory, and justice reform. Sean today is going to be talking to me about cancel culture and many other political differences between the US and the UK, and see how we come together to battle those. So without further ado, because I'm so excited for this episode, Sean, do you mind telling me a little bit about you? What inspired you to do art, culture, poetry, and all this other stuff, but especially justice reform? And how do you get involved in this world of politics altogether?
Yeah, sure. I'm an artist and a writer from the UK, from the south coast of the UK, and for the last 3 years, I've also been a contributing editor to Empowering the Innocent here at the University of Bristol. I work in tandem with Dr. Michael Norton there on miscarriages of justice. And I'm particularly interested in cancel culture and the arts, and how it relates to the justice system and also the politics that goes on behind that. So, yeah, that's my essential MO.
You know, Sean, the cancel culture of politics and art kind of changed between the US and the UK. Here in the US, cancel culture has become quite the norm. And I was literally just doing an interview where a far-right activist was telling me about how cancel culture has pretty much come over our country, but over there in the UK might be a little different than here. So you mind like sharing a little bit how you guys see cancel culture over there? How does it like go about? Is it as bad as in the US where like someone is canceled, they're pretty much like out of the picture? Or is it like different than ours over here?
Well, I think we inherited it from you. We imported it here as a kind of a tactic to shut people up that you don't like, but a counter narrative. And we know what the narrative is for the wider woke, but that term's very tired now. But, you know, the progressive project all over the West is been kind of attacked by the Trumpian sort of politics of the last 8 years, but the globalists won't ignore that, and they keep coming into each other all the time. So if you make anything in creativity, in art, in film, in politics, in theory, in academia, that's another passion of mine, that is against the progressive narrative and against globalism, then you will be shut up. You'll be cancelled, or you'll just not get the call back, which is quiet cancellation, which is much more common in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that part you mentioned, the cancel culture part, and you also said you were a writer. So do you mind sharing how that writing part and media and cancel culture has shaped your approach to community activism and political disclosure?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an activist because that kind of puts a cap on you, which I don't know, not too comfortable with. But if other people say I am. But I don't feel like. I mean, I'm just very into the integrity of the law, and when things like the lawfare or kind of cultural lawfare, which I experience, come into play, it just makes me very cross, and it makes Dr. Norton cross. I wrote a book called A Delicate Balance of Reason, 2023 book, and Adventures in the Culture Wars. And it explored everything from 2017 era with the Me Too stuff, to Black Lives Matter, to the COVID times, and to Brexit here, which is now almost 10 years ago, but from Brexit and Trump in 2016. We've seen how that enraged the progressive left. They never said it enraged them. They just operated as if it enraged them. And I'm talking as a person who comes from the progressive left, as in I used to be I mean, I've always, if you're in the arts, you have to be involved in the progressive left, or otherwise you're not going to get anything. And that's changing over the last couple of years. But and when the left started to go crazy in 2020, many of us, rationalist kind of artist thinkers, started to move away and then went, no way, we're not having any of this stuff anymore. Whether that be capitulation to Black Lives Matter and critical race theory, which is bad for them as it is bad for us. Everybody ends up depressed. Or if it's the trans debate where science says you cannot become a woman, but we're being told if you say that, you'll get sacked. All this kind of stuff. And feminism, which it's the big ism that controls everything else. And it is very strong in the British justice system and in the American one. And we're seeing how these things all fit together. And thanks to Mr. Musk, I suppose, after him, the conversation's opened up, the open window's moved, and we're actually allowed to talk about it a bit more. And they realise none of this is hate speech, it's just rational speech.
And now, with that part, you mentioned that other hat, the cap that you actually do have, it is the artist part. So I wanted to ask you, do you think then that role that artists and musicians and people in the arts, like visuals, are playing today does create change in fostering a better political community? In your area, at least in your expertise, you think like you yourself have created art that is good for people to like look and believe like, okay, this can make change. This is something that can bring us together or, remove that barrier that we have alongside, racism or xenophobia or any kind of those phobia parts.
I don't know about my own art, but I can tell you that the art world is absolutely irrelevantly pathetic on this question now. In the past, it might have had an influence with like the Spanish Civil War 100 years ago, or Andy Warhol's comments on celebrity and things like that. But now, I call it the Instagramization of art, where it's basically hot young women not interested in the content of their work, just selling the work as it is now. And it's like a genre of this, and that's Instagramization. And it's very watchable. It's very scroll by, but it's absolutely empty, meaningless. And Warhol, I don't know if your viewers are into this kind of thing, but Andy Warhol did exemplify the emptiness of art to say that's the point. It's only surface. But these guys doing it now are just doing it for a bit of attention because online world is all about attention. And the actual content of whatever's there is absent. There's no thinking behind things. And also the system has made the thinking dangerous because if you actually express real thoughts about stuff, you'll be cancelled, as we've mentioned, or you won't get the callback. So it's like you have to play along. Real art doesn't play along, or proper. And it's not about being activist or anything. It's just about real art is about an expression of an individual view of the world, which says, without fear or favour, this is what's going on. You don't have to cast judgment. You just have to reflect it. But there's zero reflection going on. There's nice pretty paintings, but I'm not averse to a pretty painting. I do pretty painting too, if they're considered that. But I also can do these cultural comments, like stories and things, like could be the Harvey Weinstein story or the Johnny Depp story, ones I've done recently. I've got a portrait of Donald Trump, the most divisive man in the world. Because actually, that's where the art is. The art is in the tech and in the big politics. It's sad, so it's important we reflect that. But don't use the tech as the art itself. Like Instagram isn't a canvas. It's just like TV. So that's how you should use it. It shouldn't be going, oh my goodness, isn't that great? So in answer to your question, art is rather empty on this subject at the moment. I have no idea what I'm doing about it, but at least we're able to talk about it right now. So.
Yeah, let me ask you. So you mentioned some parts that I think they're great. With cancel culture currently, do you think there's a way? And I will say more for research purposes, not for me to try to cancel someone. But do you think there is a way that we can use art and like culture and music to cancel someone who's like perhaps we don't like? Perhaps it's like Donald Trump here in the United States, who, as you said, the most divisive man in the planet right now. Is there a way to use arts and culture to literally like just cancel him and let people see who he really is?
Well, it depends on what you depend on which side you're coming from, and I'm not about the binaries. So I with international politics in Britain, there's a big sort of pressure to say I hate Vladimir Putin, and I'm not a Russian. I'm not living in Russia or Ukraine. And why am I going to say I hate Vladimir Putin? He's a politician. These people are all politicians, which makes them beyond morality, and people don't seem to realise that. These people are operating on a completely different set of compromises and games and stuff, which we're not privy to. And to pretend we are is an idealistic position, which I don't mind. It's important to have some idealism. But if you don't understand what they're doing, which is far away from idealism and making deals, then you're losing out. In terms of can we use art to highlight that sort of thing? Well, the portrait I've done of Mr. Trump, which is in my book Society, which I released a few months ago. It's not a flattering portrait. I don't know what he would think of it, but it's important, and he's important, and it's a reflection of the importance. I've got one of Musk in there too. His face in this portrait squiggled. It's off because I don't do conventional portraits. So he might look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's so ugly." But I don't think it's ugly because I just like interesting paintings to look at. That's not going to move the dial on anything, I don't think. But I'm trying to say, I suppose, one is that I don't believe in trying to change things through art, but there's a lot of messaging out there that says we should try to change things through art. I actually don't think we should. I think we should try to reflect and then let things go on at their own pace. We're in a period now where Trump is desired by half of America, and in Britain where Keir Starmer is desired by about 15 people. And in Russia, they have no choice but to desire Putin. That's the things we have to reflect, and eventually it's going to go on and change.
Yeah, so for example, here, in the US, we got this recent, and I think it was made in Israel. I might be wrong, but it was this video presenting Donald Trump as an emperor, and that has become very popular in our news area. And I will send you a link to the video if you haven't seen it on an email at the end of this. But it's pretty much it's a song, but it's showing how he's an emperor and how he has destroyed like the country, the culture, and slowly make things about himself over people. And when I saw that video, I thought like, wow, the arts and culture community and music are really showing people and has become so popular. And now, if you haven't really seen it yourself, you are in the part like, wow, like you are really seeing this and believing what's really going on, but it took a song or some artistic like way to make it happen. And I think that is powerful in a way because it shows us that the power that arts, culture, and people have to like it's like magic to us. You know how it just takes over and it really shows us who we really are inside.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's an energy monster, which means that whenever you get a big person who's very divisive, we have a bunch of them over here too. The Russell brand is big in both of our countries, I guess. And the more shit that you throw at them, the bigger they get and the more they enjoy it. So if you really want to have a go at people like Trump or Brand or Andy Tate, these kind of people, if you really want to have a go at them, ignore them because then that will take away the algorithmic fund, which is anything that you make on Trump. If you do a meme that says he's terrible, he's an emperor, he's a king, anything that sort of thing, which is obviously very unpopular there, but we're more used to it here. If you do that, it's just going to feed into the legend. So he knows that. He knows that about pop culture. So nothing you can say about him is going to hurt because, people have been calling him a paedophile for 6 months now. We watch it over here. We see it all and go, that's internal American politics. You sort of got to keep it there because we see how toxic it is too. We have our own toxicities here, you can imagine.
And that's the other part. Like I remember multiple years ago when he went to the UK to visit the monarch. He like the king and queen back then, or I believe he was the queen back then. In his last presidency, a group of activists put a large balloon of him as a baby, which has become a very popular, like even in the United States, it has become this super popular balloon now, where when I go to a protest, I see the balloon present because people are, and that's like one part of the artistic, like part of the UK that we brought to here because we're seeing it, and I'm glad that people look at it and people see, not just here in the United States, but around the world, because here in the United States we have that group that is like a cult, and they believe that no matter what, this guy is, that he's the savior. They're I was, as I mentioned, I was doing an interview before yours today, and that person was telling me how there's such a thing as Trump derangement syndrome, which is when people don't like Trump and they have already a mental disability, and that's been a common reoccurrence. I recorded 2 episodes on a person who literally told me how, and this person is a mental health individual, and professional, and she told me how it's a real thing, and she had diagnosed her patients with it. To where I have another individual who is also a doctor in the same field and tells me like, no, that's not a real thing. So it's like, seeing that part and seeing how it's going, understanding that in a way, cancel culture is needed. We need to cancel people every now and then, and I think people have made that have associated with I don't know, being wrong or being bad in a way. But cancel culture is so needed for us to be able to remove people that are doing wrong out of places. And I think, I don't know, if this is so much of cancel culture, but you as a person living in the other side of the world right now, from me, I've seen some stuff of people that have been fighting the monarchy for years. They want to abolish the monarchy, and it's a very popular thing. And I think, in a way, that's also it's a good way to use that cancel culture to remove something they don't want. And I don't know if you agree or you think I'm correct there.
Oh, just interesting, and it's the other sort of it's the other side of what we're talking about. It's interesting what you said about the two doctors, and that's the binaries we're talking about. And it makes you just think that we're not dealing with adults, when things are like that. Because as I explained before, with politics, you need to remove the emotion from them and to see what's actually going on to do it. I mean, I suppose that's what this show's sort of about. And I don't know about your comment, we need cancel culture to remove people. That's a very interesting comment. And obviously, that's right in my ballpark. We live in democratic countries, you and I. So if you want to remove people, we vote them out, or we don't buy their product, right?
That is correct. That is actually. I think that is correct. It's a democratic country. We should have that power. Sadly, we have seen, at least here in the United States, we have seen that democracy sometimes doesn't work. We have made it clear in the past to vote people out, but it doesn't work because that person just figures out another way. And the biggest part here, at least in this country, is that we can pull what is called a removal of office petition. But even if we try to do that, that person still has the opportunity to run again for office. So under the same ballot the next year. So you can remove people, but unless you convict them of federal charges, and not fully, because right now our president is a felon with 47 felonies, including a bunch of charges of sexual assault accusations and even part being of the Epstein filed island thing. And he's still the highest office held in our country. So that's where I say, I think in a way, cancel culture is a good thing. The people don't see it a lot like that, but I think in a way because we can use it to show that aspect and things, without that repercussion. And it comes in the United States, it comes with the free speech amendment in the Constitution, but also that has been used against people lately quite often too.
Well, it's an act of disapproval, isn't it? Cancel culture. So it's like, we don't agree with what you're doing, so we're going to stop your freedom of speech. And Americans have it, of course, in the Constitution where you can't do that. We don't have it that strictly in Britain, so we can work around it in law, and we keep getting shafted on these subjects. So it's like we kind of wish that we did have that in the Constitution. I mean, the thing about, obviously, you don't like Trump, and I get that. And whatever I think about Trump is irrelevant because I'm over here and I'm just watching. So you keep that in mind. But it's like, he won the last one 6-4, didn't he? So, and then in 2020, it was sort of 50-50. And it's like, it's democracy, isn't it?
It is, it is, and in a way, the sad reality that I noticed as of today that a lot of the people that voted for him for the second term are also becoming a little more, they're becoming more disapproving of him. They're becoming more disapproving of what's really going on in this country. And what America has that is like, I think our biggest problem is that we have a lot of undecided voters that still go out and vote because they think it's their due diligence to do. They have to go and vote. But the problem is that when they go and vote, they don't know who they're voting for and they look for the popular name. The popular name was Trump, so they went alongside with Trump. And that's like a biggest part, I think, that goes into our culture and our people and in this country. I think it's the part, as I said before, it's a part of like a lot of uneducated individuals and a lot of our politics are so that democracy in a way comes in with a lot of responsibility and it's not used responsibly.
Mm. So it's the implication that the people on the other side, the MAGA lot, are basically stupid. Is that what we're saying? Or I'm sure it's not
that's 100% the implication. I will say, I will say it. I think people on the other side are quite stupid. In my opinion, I think though they have, they have their freedom to say and believe what they want. Most of their claims are very undocumented. I was just, again, as I said, I was doing an interview not long ago, and my podcast seems to receive a lot of requests from far right individuals, and lately a lot of MAGA supporters. And because I like sometimes like to challenge and hear their opinions, I invite them over, and I noticed that one of the biggest things that I got from them is the vaccination situation, the COVID-19, like COVID-19 was a hoax, or then the election was stolen. The last election, Donald Trump didn't win because the machine stole it. The person that I was speaking to before told me that it was the Arabic people that stole the election. And then another one told me it was China. So it's like a lot of those are unfounded claims. They don't have resources. They don't have real like material to tell me and show me like, hey, this is how it really happened. To where you can go online and just Google pretty much was the election stolen, and you get 20,000 results telling you no, but then you get those two that say yes. And those two are like Fox News maybe, and like and the other one is a very like local newspaper written by a super Trump supporter. And that's what we noticed, like, and that's where quote unquote cancel culture can come in, because those people, like right now, before in the US, for a while, you just post them online and you could get rid of them. You could like quote unquote cancel them. Now it's becoming harder because the majority, which are the silent majority, but then the minority, which are the Trump supporters, they're the quietest ones. I mean, they're the loudest ones. I mean, but the quieter ones are the majority. While the minority is so loud, then people think that there's more of them. If we look at it, like if we all come united, I think there's more of us than what they are of their side. So we could easily, and again, it's unconstitutional to say, we're going to quiet them. But I would say we can definitely broad that aspect of like, hey, we can remove your guy out of office if we wanted to. Like, if we really had the people come together and put the disagreements aside, there's more of us who are against him than what they are for him. And that's where I think, cancel culture in a way, and to bring it in, like that would also like help out to like cancel him, remove him, and show the people like, don't vote for him again. Don't really look into this guy. Don't bother with him.
Hmm.
And I mean,
That
he's been canceled multiple times. It's just the way to work around it.
Yeah. So this is like, it doesn't sound in the democratic spirit to get vote him out. And it's kind of quite clear in America. There's all the rhetoric between the elections, both of our countries. There's all of the rhetoric between the elections, with both the last coming up in 28 and 29. And when that comes, then at least that moment is countable and it's auditable and stuff. And,
Mm.
it's very hard in our countries to really fix an election, as we saw the last time, But it can be done, but it's only because we're on the push and pull of things. I mean, in Britain, half of us are Conservative and half of us are Labour. So half are, yeah, Conservative, we get that. And on with the Labour, you call them Liberal over there. I'm a Liberal, but I'm not an ultra progressive Liberal, you know, that if you probably tell from my speaking. And it's like, all I want to try and do is bring people together. And in my mind, that means people like Trump, bringing Trump together and the anti-monarchists together, you know, and that kind of a wet Liberal. Does that work for you at all? Or you just think it be got rid of?
Yeah, and you said that part, where I listening, and you used the term, you're not ultra liberal, and I think that's like one of the biggest like things that we have also that we've seen is then that far left, far liberal like extremist has taken over to the point where they scare away a lot of people. A lot of people just
Mm,
scare away because they don't have that part, and it's they don't want to be a part of it anymore because now they're freaking out, and this young, like super liberal individual is gonna say something that they don't agree with, or it's like something super
mm,
radical. And I don't know, like if that's like a problem where like in the UK where you're at, where you have like radical people saying things. I know there's Stub Oil is quite a group that is quite popular in the UK, and they're like throwing soup at paintings and destroying art for their purpose. And it's like, how extreme can you be before too extreme? It's already a thing, right?
mm. There we are, right into my wheelhouse. The throwing of the paint at the art and all that stuff, even though there was a screen in front of most of them, they wouldn't have cared if there wasn't one. It turned almost everybody off the ultra left cause here, unless you're under 30 and uh, sort of presenting with neurodivergent. When apparently then everything's on field and everything's okay to be cancelled or attacked or the rest of it. Where all the rationalists went, don't be destroying art with soup, beer. You know, don't do that. And we hear you've mentioned the ultra left scaring people off. Well, indeed, and it's like um, for, for a good reason. The cancel culture that you mentioned, which you have helpfully as a devil's advocate or as a devil or whatever if you think that, it's like they are the ones doing this. They think that their moral superiority is worth what they're doing. That is democratic in itself. They don't seem to care about the democracy that we both seem to agree needs to happen. They think it's better to be authoritarian in their progressiveness. And there's nothing progressive about that kind of authoritarianism just because it's coming from the progressive left, which thinks it's making things better. It's not necessarily.
When it comes to those group of extremists, because I don't have another term for them, like when they're destroying art, this art was created by people that are on your side pretty much. They believe in what you believe. But when you destroy that art, you destroy their life's work. You're also turning off those people. You're removing them off your equation. And then you're creating more enemies per se than what you're creating friends. And I think that's it's not only a problem with like, for example, Stub Oil. We've seen it here in the US too, where it's happening all the time. But also, I have friends around the world that have seen it in their countries where there's an extremist group that cancels like the entire. They do something so badly that it just removes everybody off their movement, and their movement is legit, it's believable, but now it's not because they did something as extreme as what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like we um, their idea is that we will get attention by doing the most extreme thing, and the attention is what matters. If it's a just stop oil principle behind their stunt, because it's not those, it's the stopping of the traffic and stopping of ambulances when people are dying in hospitals, or and their idea is to get the attention in order that we can get to the top of the media headlines. And the thing is that those headlines are very, very aggressive and dismissive, and everyone's going, "You're trying to save the planet by getting our attention, and you're just making us hate you." And they don't seem to realise that. And there's one guy called Mr. Roger Hallam, who's the head of Just Stop Oil, and he's there like Osama bin Laden. He's the ideas guy. did a couple of years in prison recently for something. And it's like his idea is this media thing. Best thing to do is to get there. I mean, the best way to get change, statistically, historically, is violent struggle. Sadly, violent struggle leads to change. But we live in an internet world now with all these with horrific info wars, and they're very meaningful. And violent change is, I don't know how much of a thing of the past it is, but it's kind of, I think its time is up, and I don't think the world's going to have it anymore. And if you get the change in other ways, probably more internet violence, you know what I mean? Right? And Russia's doing it in the cyber wars. So we're like, but this whole thing about getting attention in the media so that then I can help save the world, it hasn't worked for them here. It's just put them very, very far out of power.
Yeah, and as we're coming a little bit to run of time here, I wanted to ask you a little bit on, like, if you mind sharing on your experience, like with cancel culture yourself, but also like your writing. You say you wrote a book. Is the book relating cancel culture? Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And would you mind sharing a little bit on that book and then telling me, like, how people can find the book if they wish to purchase the book?
Lovely. Yeah, it's called A Delicate Balance of Reason: Adventures in the Culture War, and it's on Amazon, like all things are, for convenience. And there's a lot about everything we're talking about in here, specifically cancel culture in the arts and academia. I'm a reporter for the Academics for Academic Freedom, who had the conference last weekend. So I report on these academics who have been cancelled for even daring to talk about genetics or China in their classes. They're getting cancelled, you see, so I report on that back to them. A lot of that gets into this book, a lot on the trans debate, because I'm a follower of that. And it's not so much about the Israel kind of Gaza thing, but there's very much a hint of all of that vibe inside it. Not so much about the Trump stuff, being a Brit, but as I say, we've got an eye from over here, as your cousins, onto what's going on all the time. And we import everything that America does at some point. Yeah, so it's on Amazon. If your viewers would like to get it, it'd be great.
And I'll add that for listeners at home, I'll add that into the show notes where you can find the book if you're interested. And then I also wanted to ask you more, if people wanted to find more about your writing and like if you have a blog online or social media, how can people find more about you and follow you online?
Cool. If they're watching this, they're into political, perfect. And on my X account, quite busy. They can find me at Sean D.W. Parker. And yes, I'm always doing things on there. And I've got a Substack too, where it's not quite so busy over there. But yeah, both of those. I'm all over the socials if they want to find me. Sean B.W. Parker. If they don't have the BW, they get the Facebook guy. So I'm the BW.
All right. Well, and then, Sean, we also have another podcast where we host on X Spaces sometimes. So you may be invited. You may be our next guest there too. It gets a little too radical at times. I will share. Our hosts on that one are definitely a little bit too much, but they will be happy to have some support and talk about like different things. And I think you're definitely an amazing person to have on that one too.
I just go for the calming water in the middle as best I possibly can. Hopefully you can tell, but I'd love to come along. That sounds great. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, and I appreciate you. I appreciate artists like you that are doing so much work in the arts and culture world. And so it's so much needed in our world right now to see art in such dark times. I think art and music and writing itself are the things that make us like have that little bit of light to walk through that dark tunnel for sure.
Oh, I'd like to think so. That's a nice thought.
Well, and again, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much. And I hope that we can definitely bring you into the other podcasts to do more absolute great work out here.
Lovely. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. If you are enjoying Political, make sure to listen and follow on all podcasting platforms. If you are interested in learning more about the topic that we spoke today, follow the show notes at www.politicalpod.com. Political is an Inquisitor Media original production hosted by me, Juan Collado Diaz. If you want to learn more about the work we do on our advocacy work, make sure to follow or visit Political at www.politicalpod.com.